Hello YouTube, this is Tutoring Potential. Today we are covering the Geometry Semester Review for Palm Beach County, Florida. This is part 2, and I wanted to address one question from the last section. I'm going to redo number 11. Point M, 7, 3 is the midpoint of RS. The coordinates of point S are 8, 4. What are the coordinates of R? Okay. What you're going to do is you're going to take 8 and you're going to add the x value to that, divide that by 2, and that's going to give you the x value of your midpoint, which is 7. 8 plus x equals 14, x equals 6. I'm going to do the same for y. 4 plus y over 2 equals 3. 4 plus y equals 6. Y equals 2. So your midpoint is 6, 2. Not your midpoint, R is 6, 2, which is what we want to find. Your midpoint's given 7, 3, and the other point S is given at 8, 4. To find the distance between SR, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 4 minus 2. I'm going to take the points 8, 4, and 6, 2 and put them in the midpoint formula. 4 minus 2 is 2, squared is 4. 8 minus 6 is 2, squared is 4. So it's the square root of 8, which is approximately equal to 2.8. Okay. I incorrectly did that one and didn't finish it, so just want to go over that. Number 12, find the circumference and the area of the circle. All we need is the radius. R equals 48. We're in inches. Circumference is 2 pi r, which is 2 pi times 48, which is 96 pi, or approximately, I'm going to use 3.14, 301.4, and we're in inches. Area is pi r squared, pi times 48 squared. Again, I'll use 3.14, 7234.6 if we're doing tenths, inches, and that's square inches because area is in square units. If they give us the diameter of the circle, the radius is 1/2 the diameter. Radius is 1/2 of 34, which is 17. Circumference equals, well, I could do pi times the diameter. I just always solve for the radius. So it'll be 34 pi, which is approximately equal to 106.8. And we're in inches again. Area, pi r squared. Now for area, you do need to use r, which is pi times 17 squared, 289 times 3.14, 907.5. If you use, well, I'm not going to get into it. I don't know the calculator that you get to use. So if you always use 3.14 for pi, that should work. The property of equality that justifies the statement, I'll write a little bigger. TR is congruent to TR. Well, whenever you have the same exact thing, you can think of it as a mirror image, which is the reflexive property. And because this is congruent, it's of congruence. You also have one of equality, which says reflexive property of equality says, 17 equals 17. If xy is congruent to wx, then wx is congruent to xy. Well, you've just switched what's on the different sides of the congruence equality there. So that's symmetric. Y M M E T R I C, and that's also of congruence. Sometimes you'll see these as equality, but in geometry, you'll also see them for congruence. Okay. These are worked out. The property of congruence that justifies the statement, and I've written it out here too. To translate this is just to say, if angle A is congruent to angle B, and angle B is congruent to angle C, then angle A is congruent to angle C. I'm not sure we can get in there a little bit. That's transitive property of congruence. Identify the hypothesis and the conclusion of this conditional statement. Okay. The hypothesis is between if and then. So here our hypothesis is tomorrow is Thursday. I've underlined it. The conclusion is after the then to the period. Yesterday was Tuesday. So again, the hypothesis, I may just switch the days. Hypothesis, tomorrow is Thursday. Conclusion, yesterday is Tuesday. Now, what I want to do is back up just a little bit and do just a tiny review of logic statements. Okay, here's our conditional. If in words, if P, then Q. If our hypothesis, then our conclusion. Also written P arrow Q. I do not know if you'll see this notation on your tests or exams, midterms. Alright, P then Q. The converse is if Q, then P. Your inverse is if not P, then not Q. And your contrapositive sorry for the sound effects, is if not Q, then not P. If your conditional is true, your contrapositive will necessarily be true. That is not the case for the converse or the inverse. These will not always be true if your conditional is true. In fact, in many cases they won't be. If you have a definition, then if your conditional is a definition, then your converse and your inverse will be true. But that's not going to be the case for most of these multiple choice type exams. The common is if an angle measure is 90 degrees, then it is a right angle. Well, that's a definition, because if an angle is a right angle, then its measure is 90 degrees. So that's written if with two F's, if and only if. So again, if you have a definition, then they'll all be true. But normally, if your conditional is true, then your contrapositive is necessarily true. If it rains, I will take my umbrella. So if I do not take my umbrella, then it will not rain. Right? If it rains, I will take my umbrella. If I do not take my umbrella, then it doesn't rain. Then it's not raining. Okay. Just a short review. Conditional statements. It tends to get glossed over in a lot of courses. So let me zoom in a little bit. Alright, if a number is, it should read, I'm trying to get where, okay. Here we go. The converse, inverse, and contrapositive of the following conditional and which are true. If a number is divisible by 10, then it is divisible by 5. That is true. The converse is if a number is divisible by 5, then it is divisible by 10. That's not necessarily true. The inverse is if a number is not divisible by 10, then it is not divisible by 5. That is not necessarily true. The contrapositive is if a number is not divisible by 5, then it is not divisible by 10. And that is necessarily true. Alright, so our next statement is if an angle is a right angle, then its measure is 90 degrees. This is a definition. An angle is a right angle if and only if its measure is 90 degrees. So the conditional is true. The converse of the original statement is if the measure of an angle is 90 degrees, then it is a right angle. That is also true. The inverse of the original statement, if an angle is not a right angle, then its measure is not 90 degrees. Sorry, that's off the page. That's true. The contrapositive, if an angle's measure is not 90 degrees, then it is not a right angle. That's also true. Number 20. Write the conditional statement that the Venn diagram illustrates. Well, what it's saying is we have a circle. The Venn diagram, the smaller circle is completely contained within the larger circle. And to make it more confusing, we're talking about quadrilaterals and squares, right? Now all squares are quadrilaterals. But to write it as a conditional, we say, if I use a polygon, if a polygon is a square, then it is a quadrilateral. If I'm in this smaller square, then necessarily I'm in the larger square. Now you could use shape or figure or whatever, but I just use the general polygon. So the conditional, if a polygon is a square, then it is a quadrilateral. The converse of that statement is if a polygon is a quadrilateral, then it is a square. Not necessarily true. If the inverse of the conditional, if a polygon is not a square, then it is not a quadrilateral. Not necessarily true. Okay. Write the converse and the contrapositive. If a polygon is not a quadrilateral, then it is not a square. If it's not in the big circle, it's not in the small circle. That's true. Again, if the conditional is true, the contrapositive will necessarily be true. Let's see what's on the next page. Number 21, complete the conclusion for the information given below. If you live in Lake Worth, then you live in Palm Beach County. If you live in Palm Beach County, then you live in Florida. By the transitive property, if you live in Lake Worth, then you live in Florida. 22. Complete the conclusion for the given below. If a polygon has 4 sides, then it is a quadrilateral. If a polygon is a quadrilateral, then the sum of the interior angles is 360 degrees. If a polygon has 4 sides, then the sum of the interior angles is 360 degrees. Also, transitive property. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop part 2 right here. We will start part 3 with question 23 in the next segment. Thanks for watching. Any questions, please comment on the video. Any questions, feel free to ask. Thanks again for watching.